A music executive and community activist is accused of running a criminal empire in Los Angeles. Eugene Henley Jr. facing RICO charges, allegedly tying him to the notorious Rollin' 60s street gang.
Today, just to tell the truth, so hopefully we can get down to the bottom of this. I'm 100%, the charges against me are 100% false, and hopefully due to time, we'll start to see that.
Absolutely. Here's a rewritten version of your piece, keeping the tone gritty and investigative, while tightening the structure and elevating the narrative flow. Let me know if you want this styled more like a podcast script, article, or documentary narration.
After that is, in 79, after that, 12, 13, you're going to have a gun, or you're going to get one. You start carrying a gun to school, putting it in their locker, they start raiding the lockers, and you're trying to steal your uncles, your auntie, moms, whoever had one, because you had to have it going to school.
4 years, Eugene, Big U, Henley, and Sean Diddy Combs stood as untouchable titans, symbols of influence, ambition, and legacy. Henley, the streetwise community leader turned music executive, and Diddy, the glitzy mogul who turned hip-hop into a billion-dollar brand, both carved paths that seemed bulletproof. But just like that, their worlds collapsed.
Music executive and alleged LA gang leader Eugene Henley Jr. is heading to trial. Last month, he was named in a 43-county federal indictment, and this afternoon, he pleaded not guilty during his arraignment. Prosecutors accuse Henley of running a criminal enterprise involving human trafficking, robbery, and extortion. They also say Henley, known as Big U, has ties to the notorious Rollin' 60s neighborhood Crips street gang.
Federal investigations shattered their larger-than-life personas, unearthing accusations straight out of a Hollywood crime thriller: racketeering, fraud, coercion, and intimidation. The deeper the probes went, the darker the truth seemed to become. Henley was once hailed as a reformed street general, using his past to uplift the youth through his nonprofit, Developing Options. But prosecutors now claim that was a facade. According to an explosive indictment, Henley ran a criminal operation cloaked in community activism, funneling donations and city funds into his own pockets. His alleged connections to the Rollin' 60s Crips were not relics of a former life, but an active power base.
Good evening. We've been following this story throughout the day. Federal officers arrested more than a dozen members tied to the gang known as the Rollin' 60s neighborhood Crips, though its leader was on the run. Well, within the last 20 minutes, the FBI announcing that man, Eugene Henley Jr., a.k.a. Big U, is now in custody.
In one chilling account, a young artist signed to Henley's label was allegedly lured to Las Vegas in 2021 under the guise of a recording session. The musician had recorded a track Henley found disrespectful. What followed, prosecutors allege, was an act of violence and control that shattered the illusion of mentorship.
The federal government usually does not bring these types of charges unless they've done extensive investigation. It looks like he has been under investigation for several years.
If true, Henley's organization wasn't just about youth empowerment. It was about empire building, fear, and manipulation. The indictment paints a picture of a man whose reach extended far beyond the streets of South Los Angeles, into the entertainment industry, political circles, and beyond.
This is the first time that I'm speaking about it, something that I'll never forget.
And then came the bombshell. Diddy, the architect of Bad Boy Records and one of hip-hop's most enduring moguls, was arrested on charges that rewrote everything we thought we knew about him. Known for lavish parties and his sharp business instincts, Diddy's legacy was one of reinvention. But federal authorities painted a far more sinister picture. Allegations of coercion and exploitation surfaced, claims that many insiders whispered about for years but never dared to confront.
Your story in here starts with how you got involved in the Rollin' 60s set, correct?
Yeah, well, pretty much we tried to tell everybody's backstory of how the question is hip-hop, and how did hip-hop start, and that's 1979. And it was 1979 for LA was such a tumultuous year, meaning that with the Crips, that's when Raymond Washington, who created the Crips in 1979.
It wasn't just the details that shocked, it was the scope. Raids on Diddy's properties uncovered layers of potential misconduct far beyond finance. Rumors swirled that investigators were targeting a web of influence, a system of control and silence embedded in the music industry for decades.
Now, to the latest on the arrest of Sean Diddy Combs. This one has so many people talking. The disgraced music mogul facing federal racketeering, conspiracy, and trafficking charges. Both the prosecution and defense teams are set to discuss the next phase of action following the indictment as investigators work to determine potential co-conspirators. But how exactly did we get here?
And then there was the silence of the industry. Where were the Instagram statements? The Twitter defenses? The carefully worded PR releases from collaborators and protégés? Instead, Diddy's peers stepped back, offering vague platitudes or avoiding the subject altogether.
Disheartened by the fact that they trying to say that I stole something from developing option, or I used developing option as a front.
Why now? Why both men? These weren't new names in whispers and speculation. For years, rumors followed Henley and Diddy like shadows. And yet, no real consequences, until now. The timing has fueled endless theories. Was this a long overdue reckoning, or something more strategic?
The U.S. judge has ruled that the rapper and producer Sean Diddy Combs will stand trial on federal trafficking and racketeering charges in May. He'll be held in prison until then. Sean Combs has pleaded not guilty to charges that he used his business empire to transport women and male workers across state lines to take part in recorded performances. If convicted, he could face a life sentence.
Some insiders believe the entertainment industry is cleaning house, purging those who've amassed too much unregulated power. Others say it's a high-level chess game, where alliances shift behind the scenes, and takedowns are just moves in a much bigger war. Henley's lawyers claim political persecution and racial targeting. Diddy's team is keeping quiet, hinting at exposing the motives of his accusers and the investigators behind the case. Both have assembled powerhouse legal teams. Both are preparing for war.
He was incredible, whether it was a 7-year-old child or a 50-year-old former gang member coming out of incarceration. His ability to communicate and relate was excellent. If these charges are true, because they're still allegations, they are not a done deal. They're allegations. If they're true, then Eugene Henley was somebody who presented two faces to this world.
Here's what's clear. These arrests aren't just about two men. They've exposed the soft underbelly of an industry that thrives on image, leverage, and silence. If the allegations are true, we're looking at systemic rot, hidden networks of influence that have gone unchecked for years. If the allegations aren't true, then the question becomes more disturbing. Who wanted them out of the picture, and why? Henley's alleged reach into politics and entertainment points to a broader conspiracy. Diddy's fall suggests a collapse not just of a brand, but of an entire mythos built on control and charisma.
So yesterday, Monday, Diddy celebrated his 55th birthday, but this year was a lot different. It was no Diddy parties. It was none of that. None of that stuff. Well, happily so, I guess, right now. But anyway, so this is his first birthday behind bars.
As the legal battles unfold, legacies are on the line. Henley's transformation from street leader to corporate criminal could erase a decade of community work. For Diddy, a conviction would demolish the empire he built from Harlem to Hollywood. Absolutely. Here's a more expanded version with richer context, deeper dives into the implications, and more cinematic storytelling. Think of this as the docu-series voiceover meets investigative long-form article style. We'll dig into the history, the psychological weight, the power dynamics, and the broader industry impact.
Wait a minute. Say that again. Say that again. Back up. You're saying that there's tapes and they're being shopped?
Yes, there have been people already shopping.
We've heard about the tapes, but
yes.
The shopping thing is...
Yes, there already have been tapes leaking around Hollywood, being shopped around to individuals in Hollywood. But one particular person contacted me to shop a particular video they were in possession of.
For decades, they were kings in their respective kingdoms. Eugene "Big U" Henley, the streetwise mentor turned civic leader, and Sean "Diddy" Combs, the mogul who redefined what it meant to be a celebrity. Their rise wasn't just about personal success. It was about transformation, reinvention, dominance.
We have some major breaking news. Sean Diddy Combs has just filed a $100 million defamation lawsuit against NBC Universal for the making of Diddy, the making of a Bad Boy documentary.
Arrested in connection with sprawling federal investigations, both men now face charges that reach deep into the realms of organized crime, corruption, and exploitation. The indictments. explosive. The fallout, potentially catastrophic, not just for them, but for the entertainment and cultural machines they helped build. In the narrative of urban America, few figures were more polarizing or more respected than Big U. Once a shot caller in the feared Rollin' 60s Crips, Henley remade himself as a voice for change. He founded Developing Options, a non-profit aimed at steering young people away from gang life, earning praise, funding, and access to city officials.
Now we've done 3 others where we've laid out the prosecution case. This time, we're talking specifically, what is Diddy's defense? And we decided to test it with a mock jury, and it is fascinating.
It is absolutely fascinating, keeping in mind that the real jury will be sitting down to do this. The trial starts first week in May.
Authorities allege that Henley used his nonprofit as a hub, not just for local intimidation tactics, but for laundering money and expanding his influence across multiple states. Donors ranged from LA politicians to Hollywood insiders. Some may have known. Others may have chosen not to ask questions. According to court records, a young artist signed to Henley's Anike music label disappeared in 2021 after being summoned to the desert under the pretense of recording new material. The artist had allegedly released a song Henley found offensive. The outcome was not a business disagreement. It was a threat, a confrontation, and possibly much worse. The details are still sealed, but insiders say the case could reopen conversations around multiple unsolved disappearances in California and Nevada linked to underground music and street crews. The federal raids on his Los Angeles and Miami properties weren't subtle. They were shock and awe operations, with agents storming his homes as helicopters circled overhead. The visuals alone sent a clear message: no one, not even hip-hop royalty, was safe anymore. But the charges now facing him suggest a man who used that power not just to elevate but to exploit. The federal indictment details accusations of coercion, sexual misconduct, intimidation, and financial manipulation. Former collaborators describe a culture of fear inside Diddy's empire, where silence was bought and disobedience was punished. The federal indictment against Henley reads more like a screenplay than a legal document. Embezzlement, extortion, fraud, and acts of violent coercion dating back over a decade. His organization, once seen as a beacon of hope, is now being portrayed as the front for a